Good day mga ka-YTV! It's a shining, shimmering, and starry night ngayong gabi. Ako si Ate Celine and stay tuned for a very informative and out-of-this-world kwentuhan. Dito lang sa YTV, UTV, Your TV. Usapang handog sa inyo ng mga kabataan at para sa kabataan. This is Freedom Friday. Kapag sinabing kalawakan, may iisip natin ng mga galaxies, planet, and other dark matter katulad ng black hole. Pero huwag din nating kakalimutan ang isa sa nagpapaganda ng ating gabi. Bukod sa buwan, ito ay ang bituin. Sabi nga sa mga tula o kanta, susungkitin mga bituin para lang sa kanilang mga mahal. Dahil ang bituin ay may taglay na kagandahan at ningning na napaka-imposibleng makuha. It's what Alan Moore once said, all we ever see of stars are their old photographs. Kahit nawala na yung mismong star, ang liwanag nito ay lumalakbay pa rin sa kalawakan. At ito rin ang nagpapaliwanag at nagpapaganda ng ating gabi. Tulad ng pagmamahal ni Kristo sa atin, totoong mahigit 2,000 taon nang siya'y namatay. Ngunit, ang pagmamahal at turo niya ay patuloy pa rin nating nakikita. Though we can see the real stars up close, we know that they still exist and shine for us. Same with God, we may not see Him with our very eyes, but we believe that His love is guiding us. This is called faith. Thus, our episode title for tonight, Faith in Our Stars. According to QRG Northwestern.edu, stars are big exploding ball of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium. These celestial bodies are considered as the fundamental building blocks of galaxies. Fundamental dahil ito ang responsable sa pagbuo at pamamahagi ng mga importanteng elemento katulad ng carbon, nitrogen, at oxygen. According to NASA science, because of this, their characteristics are also tied with the characteristics of the planets. At kung pagsasama-samahin ng mga bituin, ito ay tinatawag na constellations. Ang constellation ayon sa www.lpi.usra.edu o Lunar and Planetarium Institute sa Amerika ay group of stars that appear to form a pattern or picture. Isa sa mga kilalang constellation ay ang Big Dipper, na pwedeng magamit para mahanap ang North Star o Polaris. According to www.space.com, Polaris is located in the constellation of Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. It also goes by the name Stella Polaris. The 7 stars from which we derive Bear are also known as the Little Dipper. Polaris, the North Star, lies at the end of the handle of the Little Dipper, whose stars are rather faint. Its 4 faintest stars can be blotted out with very little moonlight or street lighting. But before we start to our topic, ating pakinggan muna si Kuya Wak sa kanyang previous question for the day.
Magandang gabi mga ka-YTV at welcome muli sa ating freebies segment kung saan kami ay may simpleng tanong na connected sa ating topic na stars. Ang katanungan na ito ay maaari niyong sagutin dyan lang sa comments. Our question for the day ay ano ang Latin word ng Northern Star? Ito rin ay isa sa tawag kay Maria bilang Our Lady, Star of the Sea. Upang malamang ang tamang sagot, watch Malaya Says at between the interview, andon ang sagot. I-comment below ang tingin yung tamang sagot at abangan sa dulo ng programa ang tamang kasagutan.
Madilim man ang gabi, andyan ang mga bituin para magbigay liwanag. At gaya nga ng mga sa langit, at linaw ang ilang mga katanungan natin tungkol dito. Ito ang Malaya Says. Dito ating matatanong sa isang eksperto ang mga bagay tungkol sa ating paksa. Malaya Asks, ano nga ba ang bituin at ano ang kahalagahan nito sa ating pananampalataya o sa mismong buhay natin? Ating makakasama ngayon ay isang napaka-espesyal na panauhin. He is a Jesuit priest, an astronomer from the Vatican Observatory Research Group, which he has served as the vice rector. He became the president of National Committee Astronomy, completed his doctoral degree in astronomy from the University of Toronto in 1983, became an adjunct associate astronomer at the Department of Astronomy, University of Arizona. All the way from Arizona, USA, Reverend Father Christopher Corbally.
Can you please tell us about the main function of the Vatican Observatory and what is your role there?
Well, we've been thinking recently about how to express what we do at the Vatican Observatory, its main role. And we've come up with the little phrase, faith inspiring science. There's obviously a feeding of faith into the science that we do, as well as from our science back into our faith. So it's a kind of a mutual relationship between science and faith. That's another story. But faith-inspiring science is what we're about today. My own role has been, on the staff, and my primary thing and what I love to do is research into astronomy. But from the beginning of my time here, which was in 1984, so a year after I finished my doctorate at Toronto, from that time I was sort of the person looking after our affairs here. Again, we're in two places, Castel Gandolfo near Rome, and here in Tucson, Arizona, hosted by the University of Arizona. So I've been looking after our group and the affairs of our group and relating to the university while here until about, whatever it was, 9 years ago or so now, when another of our group was good and well qualified and took over. So vice director was my title here, and I always felt that, we have two vice directors because the director obviously has to move between the two places. So there's plenty of vice in the Vatican, I felt.
Actually, in school, we were taught that astronomy is one of the fields of science. It is a natural science that studies celestial objects and phenomena. My question for you is, why we should study astronomy and why is it important in our lives?
Well, the stars are so far away, the planets even. We've managed to get to the moon, but that was many years ago, over 50 years ago. So what's it all about? Is it all useless? No, from 2 points of view. One, the technology to do these things and to make telescopes always advances, our technology, and, as it were, perfects it. So in order to understand the stars, we need good instruments. And always when there is a breakthrough in instrumentation, we make breakthroughs in our knowledge. But the sheer knowledge itself it tells us about our place in the universe. And if it tells us about our place, it also tells us about our relationship with the universe and with the creator of the universe. So again, that's the faith-inspiring science. and really science-inspiring faith as well, the mutual relationship between the two.
Now, speaking of stars, Father, I wonder what are these stars and why did we call them stars, and can you explain to us how they are exactly formed?
Oh, you would want a whole course on understanding that. So how to say? I could say simply, stars are mostly gas, hydrogen mainly, and some helium. So they are gas balls. But that doesn't go very far, does it? But so in what really stars, we have to fit them into the universe, don't we? And so what was there right at the beginning after what we call the Big Bang? And we don't know much about that because conditions were so amazing. But we feel that the whole universe was incredibly small in the extent we see it at the moment, and incredibly hot. And it, in that explosion, gradually as everything, first in that explosion were made or synthesized hydrogen mainly, about 3/4 or 80% of hydrogen, and helium was the other main thing, and then practically nothing else. So that's why I say stars are made of hydrogen and helium. Eventually everything got out and cool enough to be able to gather into clumps of this gas. And the sheer, as it were, gravitational attraction of all the matter in this clump brought everything together and made probably not one star, but many stars. And it probably made very huge stars, many times the mass of our own sun. And what happened when let's think of a single star, then kept on contracting, it got hotter and hotter in its interior till it reached something like, 10 million degrees, which is hot enough for the fusion of hydrogen. You take 4 atoms of hydrogen, bring them together, and under this very fast, very hot conditions, and they will make 1 atom of helium. So they will make more helium. In the process of doing that, they will lose about 0.7% of the hydrogen, the 4 hydrogens that went in to make the 1 helium. And thanks to Einstein, do you know the equation that Einstein is famous for?
E = mc².
Brilliant. Lovely. So
Yes,
it's
Father.
that tiny, 0.7% that is the mass that's left over from this fusion we call, and that becomes energy. Now, a gram of hydrogen would, if it all fused together, would give us in energy 175 million kilowatt hours. So you can think of a kilowatt heater running for an hour, and you need to think of 175 million of them running for a whole hour. And that's what you get from, the fusion together of a kilogram of hydrogen. So thanks to Einstein, it's an enormous amount of energy. And then, the explosion of a star then puts all this new material out into new great clouds of gas, and now this dust of elements that have been made, and the process goes on into a new generation, as we call it, of stars, and it goes on again until we get to the generation of our own sun in our galaxy. So if our galaxy is in the order of, near the age of the universe, 12 billion years old, then our sun is near the beginning, is about our sun, is only 5 billion years old. So a lot of this process has been going on in that time. So, our sun's a later generation within our galaxy, which is, if you look up in the sky and see the Milky Way, it's our collection of, our galaxy of stars in which
Yes.
we are.
Freeze muna tayo sa Malaya says, check out our Freedom Room talent for tonight. Hindi man nasa langit ang bituin na ito, pero sure ako na ang ka-YTV natin na Omino Est Maria Choir mula sa Santo Rosario Parish sa San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, Diocese of Malolos, na meron silang talent na pang Rising Star. Thank you sa napakagandang talent nyo. I'm sure, tulad ko, na-amaze at napawaw din ang ating mga ka-YTV. Malay nyo, baka next time ikaw ay isa sa mga star choir or star singers na aming mapapanood dito lang sa YTV. Salamat sa panonood at see you next week dito pa rin sa Freedom Room, kung saan kayo ay malayang makakapagbahagi ng talentong boom na boom.
YTV sa Malaya Says. Ituloy na natin ang tanungan with Father Chris and Kuya Gabo.
How would we know if the star is new or dying? Or is it right to say that stars do die?
Yes, we talk about the evolution of a star, or the lifetime of a star. Evolution, if you talk British English, and you gather that I'm English. So a star can go through a lifetime. I talked a bit about the birth of stars from what we call giant molecular clouds, and they're born not singly but in a whole group. Stars are very social, and up in that top corner there, you can see a whole group of stars that were born at the same time. Okay, they're called the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, and they were all born at the same. So this is what stars are very social, and okay, so they do what we call have a birth. They have the lifetime of the sun, which is quite a prolonged stage of a star's life, and then when the hydrogen gets used up in its core, they start to get bigger into giant stars, and then when that's the helium is used up in their core, they get even larger into supergiant stars, and then eventually they that burning, that nuclear or that nuclear fusion comes to an end in the star, maybe with a supernova, or maybe more quietly. For stars like our sun, it's rather more quieter, puffing out of the atmosphere of our sun, but by which time our sun's atmosphere will have reached, just before that stage, it'll come a giant star, and its atmosphere would have come out to the distance of our Earth from the sun. So things will change quite considerably that time. But then eventually, even that atmosphere so extended just blows out, and for our sun makes a beautiful, what we call planetary nebula. So there are various, endings, as it were, of a star. How do you tell? But that's something I've been involved with, by their spectra. So you know that the sun gives us a rainbow, and it's got all the colors there. But if you can pass it through an instrument, it's called a spectrograph, and that shows you very fine detail in the rainbow, you will see actually that some particular colors, very precise colors, are missing. They're absorbed by the outer atmosphere, the cooler outer atmosphere of a star like our sun. And it's by what's absorbed, what isn't, one can tell basically what kind of star it is, how massive it is, what stage of its life it's in. So the spectroscopy of stars is a way really to go from seeing stars as just as points of light in the sky to knowing about them. And the knowing about them, how they're working, is called astrophysics. And a pioneer in astrophysics was a Jesuit called Father Angelo Secchi, who lived in the 19th century, and he was one of the pioneers turning stars from, points and pretty points in the sky.
Thank you for your in-depth insights. Now let's move on to another topic, and it is about constellations. How are these constellations formed, and how can this be seen from Earth?
Okay, I don't know how many stars you can see in Manila, but
Yes.
Get out, get away from the city lights, and that's what we're talking about. The kind of sky you may see that's behind me. So it's dark and you can see things. But actually, I suppose before it gets too dark, when you just get overwhelmed by all the stars, when you can see the brighter stars, humankind has put these stars, it seems, patterns, and as it were projected on the sky things that we have. And sometimes it's animals or it's figures in our stories and in our myths that get projected up there. So the constellations are things that come from us, from humans. They the stars, they're there, but there are some stars that are gravitationally bound to each other, but normally they're so close that we can't see them. That they just appear as one star. But if you can look at them in, either a big telescope or, look actually at the spectra, you can see that there's two objects there, not just the one that you think. But normally, no, stars are not in that kind of relationship with each other.
This is so interesting to hear because Mary is named the Northern Star. Can you please explain to us why? And what is the relevance of this nickname to the scriptures?
Yes, this is an interesting one. I talked about how for navigation, and particularly for long distances, the North Star is so important. And actually, I've even used a bright star. It was actually the planet Jupiter, to make my way through the Scottish city of Glasgow. I knew which direction I came in was from the south. I knew that I wanted to get out of it around the northwest, and I knew I could see Jupiter all my way through the city. Well, so stars and navigation, but the North Star, yes, because it's kind of fixed there, whereas Jupiter will wander in the sky, but the North Star will stay there all night and all year in the same position, has been a wonder for navigation, keeping things straight, the best guide for sailors. Now, Mary, the Mother of God, is obviously our wonderful guide of how to follow Jesus. Yes, Jesus has said that he's the way to the Father, the truth, and the life. And Mary perfectly, followed the way of her Son. And so, as that's why, the North Star, which is such an important guide, is associated with Mary. But there's something more even. Mary's name in Hebrew is Miriam, which means Miriam, which means drop of the sea. And now, if you translate that into Latin, which St. Jerome did for the Bible, that becomes, Stilla Maris, Stilla. If you make a mistake in writing or in hearing, it becomes Stella Maris, Stella. Stella Maris is Star of the Sea. Best star for navigation is the North Star. That's Mary. Okay, so either way, we come back to Mary.
So this explains the Latin phrase ad Jesum per Mariam.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means
through Jesus, through Mary to Jesus. Yes.
Yes. That is one big enlightenment for all of us, especially Catholics, no? As Catholics, I want to know, what do stars symbolize in terms of Christianity or our faith?
We think there's at least as many galaxies in our universe as our stars. What must our Creator, God, be like? So, in some ways, they lift us to the immensity, the incredible nature of our God, who made this, how? Out of love. So this incredible universe gives us some idea of the incredible love of the Creator, a love for each of us. Christ himself is called a star, isn't he? In Matthew's Gospel, you have the story about the Christmas star.
Yes.
And really, the Christmas star is Christ himself. And that's the whole point of Matthew's story there. The other thing, Christ is also referred to as the morning star. If you remember at Easter time, at the Easter vigil that's on, late on the Easter Saturday and goes into the early morning of Easter Day, Christ is called the morning star, the new rising star in the morning, because Christ is our light, and our guide, and that's the sense of the Christmas star guiding the wise men, to find the Christ child, to find God.
According to my research, you are one of the 11 Jesuits, no? What was
Yes.
your initial reaction when you knew that an asteroid would be named after you?
Surprise, obviously, and gratefulness to the one who discovered the asteroid, to naming it after me. So what happens is the person who discovers an asteroid, and then it's recorded and certified, and it can be found again because you got its orbits are all pinned down. The person who finds it has the privilege of proposing to the International Astronomical Union that this asteroid should have such and such a name. It was Roy Tucker
Wow.
and his colleague who kindly presented me with this plaque.
And lastly, Father, your message for our viewers, especially the youth watching this show. What is your message for them? And any invitation?
Well, the invitation is obviously to go out and watch, the heavens, the creation of God. Even if from Manila, all you can see is the sun and the moon and maybe one or two brighter stars. But the moon itself is wonderful, going through its phases and how it sort of plays around with the sun. And this is, part of the, universe in which we live. The moon may have been very important for life beginning on our earth, for this amazing universe that has brought us life, and that also brings us to think and to remember God's love, incredible love for each of us.
Indeed, it is such an honor to have that privilege for a lifetime, and it's a wrap for today's interview, full of interesting and new facts. Thank you so much, Father Chris, for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have a chance to interview you. We have learned a lot from you today, and may God bless you on your future endeavor.
Informative ng panayam mo na yan, Kuya Gabo. Malaya says, the stars above are created to be used as a navigation, just like what the wise men did in the Bible and the sailors in finding their way. With this, he also created us with a purpose. That is, to be the stewards of all his creations. Malaya says, our lives are not destined in the stars. Rather, God gave us freedom to choose what we want and what we think we need. Our lives should be like the stars, to shine in darkness when a friend is lost and be a guide to them towards Christ.
Hello ulit mga ka-YTV! Nakuha niyo ba ang tamang sagot sa ating tanong kanina? Alamin natin ngayon kung sino ang mga nakatama. Ang tanong natin kanina ay ano ang Latin word ng Northern Star? Ito rin ay isa sa tawag kay Maria bilang Our Lady, Star of the Sea. Ang tamang sagot ay Stella or Stella Maris. Ang Northern Star ay isa sa mga makinang na bituin na makikita sa North Celestial Pole. Ito rin ay tinatawag na Stella Maris sa salitang Latin. Ayon sa www.epicview.com, there was a loss in translation when St. Jerome was doing a bit of translating and translated Mary's Hebrew name, Miriam, which means drop of the sea. In the Latin, Stella Maris. Either due to a peasant dialect or a transcription error, Stilla became Stella, and Mary went from a drop in the ocean to the star of the sea. Simula noon, kapag sinasabing Stella Maris, ito ay patungkol sa Northern Star at kay Maria bilang Star of the Sea na gumagabay sa mga naglalakbay sa dagat. Dahil swak na swak ang bago nating kaalaman, tayo naman ay magpapasalamat sa mga nanood. At syempre, para naman sa mga sumagot ngayong gabi, abangan po ninyo ang aking pag-shoutout sa susunod nating episode. Ito na nga, shoutout naman tayo ngayon mga ka-YTV. Lalo na sa mga nakakuha ng tamang sagot last episode 3. Ang ating mga kaibigan mula sa Katang Dominico na sina Kuya Marlon Lazaro Antolin at Kuya Edward Banay. Muli, ako po si Kuya Wax at abangan niyo po ako sa susunod na linggo para sa aking bagong katanungan para sa freebies ng Freedom Friday Season 2. Tandaan, sa segment na to ay malaya kang makakasagot. Bye-bye!
My take home, asking, where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and have come to pay him homage. Matthew chapter 2 verse 2. Sa gitna ng kadiliman ng problema, makita nawa natin ang liwanag ng bituin na maggagabay sa atin patungo kay Kristo na ating tagapagligtas. At kung madama na natin ang kanyang pagmamahal, nawa ay maging bituin din tayo na maggagabay naman sa mga taong naliligaw upang mapalapit natin sila kay Kristong nagbibigay liwanag ng buhay.
Tunay nga ang mga bituin ay nakakamangha lalo na ang liwanag na taglay nito. Nagmula sa hydrogen at helium, pero ang ganda nito sa kalangitan ay walang maligo. Tulad ng liwanag na taglay ni Maria at ng Diyos sa ating puso. Ang kanilang ilaw ay nagniningning ng bayang lahat ng kanyang nilikha. At sa malayo ang mga bituin, patuloy natin itong tuklasin dahil ang ating likas na pagkakaaliw at pagmangha sa mga gawa ng Diyos, sabi nga ni Father Chris, faith-inspiring science. Abangan nyo naman bukas ang Sabado sa kanilang Holy Week special episode to help the youth dispose themselves as the Church commemorates the Passion, Death, and Resurrection of Jesus Christ. Lahat ng yan dito lang sa YTV. YTV, Your TV. Usapang handog sa inyo ng mga kabataan, kasamang kabataan at para sa kabataan. Dahil dito sa YTV, Malaya Ka.
Hello mga ka-YTV! Ako nga pala si Kuya Jason, ang inyong kayumo. Magbabalik muli ang isang programa para sa inyo. Excited na ba kayo? Dahil kami ay sobrang excited na. Kaya sa darating na Sabado, 5:30 ng hapon, inaanyayahan namin kayo at ang inyong mga kaibigan, kaklase, katropa, ka-love life, at ang inyong mga kalakbay na manood sa ACY Manila Facebook page and YouTube account. See you there!
YTV Youth TV, Your TV.